Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Community live stream today is Friday, September 14th. Yes, that's what it is. The days are going by so fast, I can't keep track. That's why I keep a watch at my side so that I can keep track of the date and the time, and there are screens and controls and levers and buttons all over me. This is the web series where I go through the community on the ServiceNow community at community.servicenow.com and offer you not just answers, but insights and tutorials and a series of exploration and verbalize my thoughts as I go through this so that you can learn from this and be a more effective administrator and developer on the Now platform. So let's get on with the pre-roll. I'll scoot down here in the corner. If you are watching this live on YouTube, thank you very much. If you're not and you want to get announcements, let's see if it's come up yet. Yes, it has. You can get alerted as the ServiceNow, as YouTube lets you know that ServiceNow has got a live stream going right now. I appreciate it very much. If you're out there in YouTube or Twitch land, give me a shout out in the chat room. Love to hear from you, which reminds me I need to put away this ad on Twitch so that I can see the chat, just in case anybody does that. Thank you, thank you. And give a like to this video if you find something useful in the next half hour or so. Click the like button so that others know that it is there. Patrick, good morning to you. Good morning to everyone who's watching live again. Community live stream going through the community. Kevin Eldridge is out there in YouTube land as well. Let's continue with the pre-roll. If you've got something more than just a good morning, hello, how are you, the weather, where you're going to be this weekend, fill in the blank. Fill in my blanks where the questions don't always make sense. Or, Chuck, you've got a curly brace where the parenthesis goes. That's great stuff for the chat, but even better in the community are the ServiceNow questions that you've got. If you try asking me, say, a performance analytics question in the chat, it's not going to be searchable by others later. They'd have to watch the whole video and know where it was, etc., etc. So, and I wouldn't have an easy way to index that. So that's for the community. Searchable, lots of people get to find it, lots of people get to learn from it. So go to community.servicenow.com if you have a question. If you have not been to the community before and you just happen to be watching this, you want to post a question, here are some basic guidelines that you might want to look over real quick. One question per post, use the proper category, be nice, give a context, all that good stuff. Goes, Snehal, good to see you. Have a wonderful morning or a wonderful evening, wherever you are, whatever you are. If you've been in the community for a while, then I encourage you, create some additional content so that others can learn from it. I've been getting comments on posts I made 6-7 years ago. It still works. There's the information about getting requirements and managing lists is still the same. The UI may have changed a little bit, but the underpinnings have not. Naveen, good to see you again. James, the UK is checking in. Hey, isn't it just about pub hour? No, I do this show every weekday that I can when business or life does not intervene at 1 p.m. UTC. So you've got a couple hours yet. It's Friday. I'm sure you're thinking about that. As far as I know, there is no live coding happy hour today, so I will not be partaking in that as well. So let's move on. Where were we? We did the experts. Developer.servicenow.com. Get yourself a free personal developer instance. The scripting APIs, free learning plans, all you could see. James says it's 5 p.m. somewhere. That is absolutely true. I heard another one. I can't remember what it was. It was something like it's December somewhere. They were making a play on it's happy hour somewhere, or it's 5 p.m. somewhere. It's December somewhere. Thinking maybe I can celebrate Christmas? Don't know. Alrighty. Developer, as I mentioned that, there's also developer meetups that I encourage you to get involved with if you like. Put that subtitle away, I forgot. The meetup.com site has all of our global meetups around the world. Last I checked, I think this was last week, it was 50 chapters. Haven't checked recently. Maybe we'll do that real quick and see if we're above that. I know we had about 11,000 members. I heard that one in India is now above 1,000 members. That's not to say they get 1,000 attendees at every meetup, but that's a pretty sizable contingency to deal with. And God bless the people who organize that and find the venues and check those people in. We are working on ways to automate that and make it better, and I'm sure they are eagerly awaiting that. It's actually being done by the meetup organizers. They're driving the application and the requirements to make their meetups easier and better, and using, of course, ServiceNow to do that. So if you haven't attended one of these, I strongly encourage you to do so. They are a great learning experience, great networking experience. Find one in your area. If there isn't one, let us know, and we'll be happy to help you get one started. Meetups, on to, what do we have? Other events at events.html right off our main corporate website. You can find there's Snugs. You can find Now Forums. There's going to be Now Forum Sydney, Now Forum Tokyo, Now Forum London. And I will be at Sydney and London, also taking a side trip to Melbourne for a developer meetup, taking a side trip to Munich for a developer meetup. So all of that is coming in October. November, there are also developer days. Lots of events that are coming for you developers, for you ServiceNow administrators. Most of the people that are watching this, look forward to seeing you at some of those. And hopefully there's some opportunities in the future to meet up and socialize. Follow me on LinkedIn if you want to find out more information about those meetups and opportunities for you to get together with other ServiceNow people and learn lots and lots of webinars. Wow, I saw on LinkedIn this morning there were something like 6 or 7 webinars coming up in the next couple of weeks. And that doesn't even include ours, which is, get the right keyboard there, Charles, which is coming up on the 25th, Integration Hub, extending your capabilities by building custom spokes. You can register at the link there. There is a Developer Days coming up in September 26th and 27th. I forgot to mention that. So this is the day before that, and then I'll be going to San Diego. I haven't socialized it because our social media card is incorrect. The title says Santa Clara, but when you click through to it, it registers for San Diego. So I'm working with the social media person to get that card cleared up so that when I do broadcast it, it's not falsely advertising the wrong place. And then they click through it and say, that's not what I thought I was clicking through. So we got to get that straightened away. But anyway, this one is virtual. This one is online. This one is a webinar for you. Looking forward to it. Tech Now lives on. We are almost closing up our 6th year. We started in 2013. So, yeah, we've been going for about 5.5 years. Almost 60 episodes and many, many more planned. We did have to put a tweak to the agenda for October, so I've got a bit of a surprise for you. We'll be doing that one later in October, but let's not look too far ahead. We want to get this one done. Craig Stepp will be leading this one for Integration Hub. It's sort of an expansion of what I started building yesterday. If we get time, I'd like to continue building that. Custom actions in Flow Designer. I'm doing a very, very simple version of that. He'll be expanding on that to include Integration Hub so that you can communicate with other systems. But the concepts are basically the same. So if you continue to watch this and you see me doing Flow Designer actions, all we're doing is putting a few different steps in there. I don't mean to belittle or diminish the impact of Craig's work, but it's effectively the same. If you can make a Flow Designer action, you can make an Integration Hub action, assuming, of course, you have Integration Hub licensing. Customer Success Center. The letter is S, which is why I went S. It's a mnemonic. I hit the letter S, and up comes the Customer Success Center. Can't hit C, because that brings up the community subtitle. Customer Success Center is where you can read more information about continuing your ServiceNow journey, whether you are just getting started or you are a pro and have been around this for 10 or more years, whatever. There's always something to be had in here, from legacy to new to best practices, lots of good information. This is that central repository customers have been looking for. To when John Donahoe first came on board and he asked customers, what can we do better? And the customers responded, we need you to help us on our journey. What's our forecast? What's the best way to do this? Help us get the most out of ServiceNow. And this is our answer to that. So if you want to get the most out of ServiceNow, I encourage you to go over and look at the Customer Success Center. Any code or scripts that I write today will be stored off in a repository at the link you see there on the bottom. That's in a GitHub repo, as you can see from the Jedi Octocat. Just water today. Just water. Still a little warm to be doing the tea thing as we get closer to winter. The days are getting shorter. It's getting darker as I get up and prep for this show. I'm missing the summer months already. It's getting to be late September, and I don't know how that happened. But I'm here. I'm happy you're here to hang out with me again. Code over there, and that means it's time to get started on the community. Again, thank you for joining me. The pre-roll is to help people get their announcement, get joined up. This is the community live stream. I'm Chuck Tomasi. I'm going to explore what's new in the community and see if we can answer some questions that have come up recently. Let's start with some fresh new questions. I do a quick refresh on the screen and click unreplied to see what's there. I've got one response in my inbox. That's what the little red tick in the upper right corner means. Repeatedly checking for attachment in workflow. I'm not sure if that sounds like a bug or not. Is there any kind of synchronization between IP addresses and network adapters that can overrule business rules? Scheduled job code is not working. Let's go for the scheduled job code first. My expertise is in custom applications, integrations, scripting, and the platform in general. So that's generally where I'll gravitate in the community. So if you see me skipping over things like HR or customer service management, it's because that I may take a look as a learning opportunity, as maybe it's a developer question that they're not familiar with in that particular area. So never hesitate to take a look and see what's new, what can you help with, and maybe we'll see what happens. But generally, I'll be looking at the developer ITSM platform stuff. I am running below code in scheduled job. XYZ table is inherited from ALM hardware. It is not inserting records to XYZ table, but I can see in the logs it's fetching the values. Please help. So I can probably tell you what the issue is. That's an add query. Do this ALM. Do this says, take a glide record, initialize it, ALM1 serial number. Okay, I would change all of these to get value first. So anytime you're using ALM1 in this function, I would use a get value because glide record is a pointer. And if you retrieve 12 records, which they could very well be doing, they're looking for the manufacturing serial number that has a status of 6, and then querying. Likely they're only going to get 1 if they're looking it up by serial number, but I would still change these to get values. You run into fewer problems if you use get value. Now, what is it doing? I would also use new record instead. Difference between initialize and new record. I know initialize is used in a lot of examples, a lot of out-of-box code, but I looked it up one time and I said, what is the difference? They both allocate an object for you. New record pre-populates the default values, which I think is kind of important. So you can get that right up front. What is the default value in your glide record? So I've gravitated towards new record. You do what you want. You do what works. It's not inserting records, but I can see in the logs it's fetching the values. So he's got a log. I say he generically. I apologize if that's incorrect. It's got a log here. It does the insert. It does a GR1 insert. There's nothing else in the log. Initialize serial number, GR1, IGF serial number. I don't see anything overly blatant that might be stopping it, but my recommendation would be, I'm going to do a quick search and replace. My first recommendation, asset tag, would be to use, they are using it on their table, yes. Okay, new glide record XYZ. I just want to keep referring. I apologize for skipping up and down. Get value on ALM1 instead of simply referring to the properties. Get value often fixes many odd behaviors I've seen when copying values. Example, gr1 dot end lease date equals alm1 dot get value end lease date. There's another advantage while I get there. Hold on, I want to put that in a little code block here. Oh, I wish that was just a tiny bit smaller, but most people don't when they're making it, when they're using editors. There's another advantage of using get value and set value. If you have a list of fields like this, another way to do this would be, rather than explicitly setting out each field, like serial number, asset tag. Of course, this one they're not doing a direct mapping. But what I've seen in the past, let me show you real quick. What I've done is create an array of fields to copy. So you could do something like var copy fields equals, and if we said the incident table, for example, short description needs to be copied, description needs to be copied, maybe assigned to needs to be copied, and assignment group. Okay, so you can lay out your fields this way. Set value and get value, because they use strings as parameters, you can now loop through these things. For example, for var I equals 0, I less than copy fields dot length, just a typical array. I plus plus, I'm going to loop through this array until, and then take destination glide record dot set value copy fields sub I, and the value you want to set to it. So this is going to replace, in the first iteration, it's going to be short description right here. That will be short description, and then what we want is source glide record dot get value copy fields sub I, and you're going to get the value of that one. Now, I get a little bit of a headache when I read too many variables, especially if you're using an attribute of an array, if it happens to be an array of objects. So what I started doing is doing a real shortcut local variable, something like field name equals copy fields sub I, and then makes it just a tiny bit more readable. Yeah, it wastes a variable, but hey, if you're using the script debugger, this actually comes in handy to make sure that you're on the right variable at the right time. And now, with a few lines of code, you can easily extend this later, and somebody says, hey, we need to also copy the caller ID field. Great, let's put in caller ID. Okay, you can do that and extend it that way. And of course, down here you would have something like destination gr.insert. Up here you would have var destination gr equals new glide record, whatever table, incident. I'm not sure where index came from. Haven't even thought about that. Darn motor skills. Okay. Set source gr to some incident record. Right? That's why one of the reasons why I like set value and get value is because not only do they get you the true value, because if you just said source gr.caller ID, that's actually an object, and most people don't realize that. They think, oh, it's just a sysid. No, there's a lot of properties, there's a lot of functions, there's a lot of stuff that comes along with that. And particularly when you start getting into service portal scripting, and you assume that, say, incident.sysid is the sysid, you're going to get an object, and it's not going to display right in your service portal widget. So you got to start using get value and get display value more religiously. I will save that off in a bit. Not going to delay here, but let's see what comes of that. We did answer a question. That's the kind of thought process we're going to give. Could you get the copy field string from a sys property? Yes, you absolutely could. Good question. Good question. So what James is suggesting here is you could do var copy property, for example, equals gs.getProperty, say my copy fields. And even better, if that property doesn't exist, you could put in a default string of something like caller ID, short description, and make sure it's comma separated. Now this is just a string at this point. Let's just copy those two. But if there is a field, it will use this. So this is, if I don't find it in sys underscore properties, use that to turn it into an array, of course. Then, answer, anybody know? To go from a comma separated string, you would say copy prop dot split on the comma character. This turns it into an array. Excellent idea. Should have thought of that myself. Data-driven, properties are your friend. You'll have a lot less maintenance of code in the future. Wow. You get a double bell for that, my friend. I don't know that we have ever awarded a double bell, but that was fun. Kevin is saying I missed a plus on line 3. Somewhere in here? Plus, plus. You are right. Woo. Good catch. That's why we have extra eyeballs. That's why we have a live chat going on. Well, one of the reasons we have a live chat. It's Friday, my friends. Let's continue on. What a great way to start a day. 6 a.m. for me and feeling fine. Mostly fine. As fine as you can be at 6 a.m. Use SNC read-only role and ITIL unable to view publish report. Okay. View publish report. Because you can't change anything when you've got ITIL. I mean, SNC read-only. We have a user with SNC read-only role as well as ITIL. When we publish a report that is a pivot table, all they see is this. If we change the report to list, it works fine. Is there a known issue with... Oh, wow. Okay, that's not what I expected. And that probably shouldn't go in the developer community. It does appear to be ACL related, but it's more reporting and performance analytics related. So he hooked me in with the wrong topic. But that doesn't make sense either. It sounds like a bug. I will be curious to see what anyone else says. I'm going to subscribe to that just by clicking this subscribe. Steve is out there. Steve from Sweden. Hey, Steve. All right. What is ServiceNow? Is this a question in training and certification? I'm not much familiar about ServiceNow. Please guide me to what's this program and about how much demand of this program in the market. Let's see what people say. To answer your first question, you go through the blog to get started. That's a good idea. Should have made that a link, though. And watch this YouTube. Is that the YouTube that I'm thinking of? Let's find out. Because there is a basic introductory, what is ServiceNow and how can it help me do my job? That's the one I was thinking of. 169,000 views for this little 5-minute, 58-second video. Perfect. Good job, Pradeep. 2 minutes ago, to answer your second question, here's the stock price. That's nice. I like that. Yeah, is there demand? You should have invested. It's never too late. Go for it. That's funny. That's funny. Can you explain how to use initialize in script includes? Yes, I can explain that. All right. You hit on one of my favorite topics, script includes. All right. Here is my short story of script includes. And I have to write this down, otherwise we'll forget. Let me put this in my notes that we talked about script include, because this is not going to be based on an article that we took a look at. Script includes from Steve. Okay. So a script include is a collection of server-side code. It's a library, if you will. You can use them in server-side code, whether it's a scripted REST API, a business rule, a UI action. You can call these functions from anywhere in your server-side code. Now, that being said, there's also a client callable checkbox. In fact, let's bring up one that I was working on. I think it was the loaner request. I'll go to Studio and bring up an example of one. I have several on this instance that make for good examples. And collapse that because I know it's under server development. Script includes loaner utils. And in here, there is a client callable checkbox. That means it's accessible to client scripts. If you're going to be doing any glide Ajax, where the client initiates the conversation and requests information from the server, that's how you get this thing to respond. You say, hey, go call this function in this script include. Here are some parameters and send me back. Now, there's a whole process behind that. I'm not going to get in deep in that today. You can watch episodes 5, 6, and 33 of Tech Now on the community if you wish to find out more about that. But his question was specifically around the initialize function. Let me pop that out into full screen mode and collapse this so you can see a little bit better. What I used to do, this is actually a bit of an older methodology for me. The initialize function gets run when you instantiate the object. So let's do a quick little example. I'm going to create a new script include in my community live stream. Here we go. I don't think I have. Oh, I do have some script includes here. Interesting. One for the REST test. Okay, let's do another one. I'm going to do create new file, server development, script include, if you're following along at home. And we'll call this one Steve. Okay. If it's in a scoped app, you automatically get a prefix on this. You don't need to use it if it's being used in scripts in that scope. So if I were to use this in a global business rule, I would have to prefix this with X underscore blah, 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 CLS Steve. Okay. The client callable, down here, it gives me a little prototype of the function. If I click client callable, it changes that to a structure that works with client scripts. I'm not going to do that in this case, but here I can say initialize something like this dot, and this refers to this object. So a script include is a blueprint. It's not the house you use. It's the class definition of an object. So class is to blueprint as object is to house. There, put that on your SAT question, your programming question. When I instantiate it, meaning I take the blueprint and I make a house, I use the new keyword. When I do that, my object has some initial properties. So let's say this name equals Chuck. And I could also say this instance equals gs.getProperty instance name. Okay, that's like the only one I remember that's out there. I don't have any other functions in here. I'll save that. And if I go to scripts background, I'd say var s equals new Steve. Okay, that instantiates the object. And I can actually say gs.info s.name. And it should give me the instance name. Did I say instance name or did I say name? I have name and I have instance. Okay, so it should say Chuck at this point. And it does. There's my output message. Chuck. So that's one way to use that is to initialize stuff when you create your new object. You don't have to call some other function. Another common naming mechanism while I'm here is to use a function called process. And this is very common that you call a process function to drive some work. If you've just got one function in here, you could do that. Some will call it run. Makes it easy to see in a UI action or anywhere you're using the function to say, oh, process just means process this data. What I used to do in here, and you probably saw it in the loaner request app, is to say this dot CLS table equals, and then I'd go get my table name from here. Here, we'll call it the item table. What I used to do is copy that, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's just a programming style that I've changed over the years. Let's call this item table. You could do camel case, you could do whatever you want. Paste that in there. Now, when I use this in further functions like get item, don't forget when you do this, you have to put a comma after this function. Think of it as JSON, it makes more sense. And then say var item equals new glide record, this dot item table. This allows me to change the name of the table. Maybe I go to a different instance. Maybe I've copy and pasted the script from somewhere else. I go, oh, it's not the same class. It's not the same scope. This becomes 230 on my other instance. I can do that. I think it was 8. It better be 8. Yes, it's 8. And then it changes all the way through that script include. Very handy, and you've got that at your disposal. What I've done more recently is put the code, I don't remember where it goes. If it goes right in, is it second line? I gotta look. I forgot. Script includes system definition. I gotta look for one of my more recent, and I can't remember which line it goes in between. This is an older style one, I think. Yeah, see, this is token table, device table is in initialize. Again, I only changed this about 6 months or so ago. Rest test? Not that one. I'm just looking for, where am I putting these things now? It's probably not even on this instance. Rats. Okay. I know it's here because I just did this. Come on, where's my other instance? Wake up, get to work. I started putting them more as almost like global variables. They're always there, they're always persistent. And script include here, system definition, script includes. I know I'm probably going a little bit deeper than you expected, but let's keep going. Sort by updated. I have another CLS application that does something completely different. There, right after the create statement is what I'm doing these days. Go back to Studio, is taking this kind of thing, and instead of saying this dot sum table, I take that out. I couldn't remember if it goes there or the one line lower, but I will say item table equals whatever, bad paste, but at least I got the content. Yeah, don't freak out. And I put them here, more like a pound define if you're a C or C++ programmer, that kind of thing. Get rid of that, and now I can do this, which to me is a little clearer that, hey, this is a global variable. It's a static. It doesn't change. It won't change. I don't want it to change. You can still change it if you're up here once. Define it once, use it many, of course, and go that route. But that's the newer format that I'm using. Again, initialize function is still going to run when you do the instantiation. You will still get item table. I think it's just a property of this. I don't know if you can access it directly or not. There's a good question. I haven't tried it because I haven't needed to. can you access it outside of the script include itself? So let's do that again. Var s equals new Steve. You probably type that a lot faster than I do. gsinfo s dot item table. I don't know if this is going to work or not. No, because it's not defined yet until it hits that initialize. So one of the key differences of using initialize versus defining them out here, defining them before the prototype begins, is you can get access to it. So any property that you want to have access to outside of the function. This completely obfuscates it from anyone getting it, changing it, doing whatever. Because imagine if I did this, in the other format, if I had that table name available to me, and I was a crafty programmer, and then said s.item table equals my table, then run my s.getItem function, it would be using an entirely different table. It's reprogrammable, if you will. So there's one security reason why you might want to use this format is they can't change it in the middle of the program. Changing it, you can't, because it's not a property of the object. Okay, Steve says that's what I'm after. Raymond Ferguson, can I debug mid-server script includes? The mid-server platform is a good place to innovate or something better off left to ServiceNow. I have not used mid-server script includes myself, Raymond. You might want to post that in the community and get a wider audience, somebody who has done that. I'm sure there are people who have written different libraries, classes, that sort of thing for the mid-server. That's my recommendation. And that way other people can search for that and say, hey, I've got a mid-server question. Years later, they'll find your question and hopefully answer it sooner than years later. I'm going to take that and also put it in my text editor. Save it for later. I think that's the only other code that I've written. I'll save it too. Ooh, it'll be part of this other repo that I built. Where are we? We are 20 minutes to. I'm going to do a quick review of what we were working on yesterday in Flow Designer. And I think that was in a global update set. So let me switch back to global. My update set picker out here. Developer. Turn on the update set picker. Make sure I've got the right one. Flow utilities. I started writing a very simple maths. Flow Designer. Action, custom actions, going through the exercise of building custom actions. And in my actions, I have a basic decimal math action so that I can use it on my test flow, such as this, to do some value from a record plus another value, plus then go back and update that, or like increment a counter, or add 5 days to a due date, or something of that nature you could do. What we discovered yesterday by accident is that these are floating point numbers, which means you can't just drag or use the data pill picker to put an integer in there. So I would need two different actions. Once built, I can select this with my action picker under global basic decimal math. And that's handy because we don't have a way to increment a counter. We don't have a way to add some value to another value. What I would like to do today is make one, maybe two more. First one I want to do is trigger an event. When you create an action to send a notification, where is it? Send email. I have a bug up my butt on this one. Works great for just simple email. Send a message to this person and use some data from the record to put in the message. That's analogous to doing the $curly brace caller ID, for example. If I were to take this and send this to the caller, boom. Okay, easy to do. However, it doesn't allow for a couple of things. For one thing, I can't do $curly brace stuff in here, which means I can't say, hey, if you want to get a link back to your ticket that you just opened, here's a link. That bothers me. Maybe someday we'll get that. So I want to be able to trigger a notification, manage all of my notifications from notifications under system notification. I want to keep them all collected here. I don't want half of them in workflow, half of them in flow designer, another half of them, yes, that's 3 halves in notifications. That's a big mess. Let's put them all here. But in order to trigger them, I would have to do something like this. Let's go to the event registry. And I will create the, oh, this is going to get caught in the update set unless I do this first. I don't want to register this. I don't want this captured. Well, you know what? This is learning purposes. If you want to play along at home, well, no, because I do want to put this on share at some point. I don't want to give everybody this dummy test event. So let's not capture this in the flow utilities. Is that what I called it? Update set. Let's just call this test.chuck on the incident table. Now my actions are not tied to a table. Actions are meant to be reusable. And I'm going to fire this by test flow. Good enough. Back to capturing what I want to capture in my flow utilities. So back to Flow Designer. Let's create a new action. So new action. And I will call this fire an event. But is that going to be clear to no coders? Because the idea is Flow Designer is going to be used by non-technical people. What do we call it in workflow? I think it's just trigger an event or fire an event, send an event, queue an event. All right, I'm going to start with fire an event. I'll change it later if I don't get it. Add a description later when I get this ready for production. And my inputs are going to be, if you remember, this is really at the heart of it is going to trigger gs.eventQueue. So let me put this away so that I can see my create input. And what I need is 4 things. 4 things are going to be triggered for GS event queue. One is the event name. Now, when I create an action input, I want this as a nice human readable label. That's what's going to show up on the flow when I prompt for this. It is not my internal programming label. So I want the event, which is going to be a reference to, go away, data pill picker, a reference to, is it just called event registry? Is this event? Event registration? I can never remember the table. I think it's this table. Let's find out. Here's the event registry table. And if I hover over it, down on the URL, I get sysevent_register. I could also get that by copying the URL. So let's make this a reference to event registration, sysevent register. I have no idea if that's the right table or not. We're going to find out if we can find mine in there. That is mandatory. You must specify the event. Create another input. This will be a glide record, which must be a record. Can you say record? It doesn't have to be a record of specific type. How do you make it a generic record? Can we make it a document ID, a documentation field? How do you get that to be a record? Can you just say records? No. All right, this is new territory for me. I have not done this. A data object, maybe we can take apart another action and understand, because when you look at this test flow, for example, it says, not there. If you look at some of these actions, like update, there is a record. What type of field is that? I can't tell because I can't take it apart. So how do you get, the record must, it's likely to be dependent on a table. So I'm guessing, can we do dependent fields in here? Or is that something that's done behind the scenes? This one may be a bigger challenge than I initially thought. Table. We can do a table name. And maybe if it's record, hold on. If it's a record to, I don't see any type of alignment here. It's just a list of tables. You know what? I might have to come back to this one, unless anybody else has a question. Hello, Chuck. When you get a chance, can you review this knowledge-based notification enhancement? No URLs posted in YouTube chat. I apologize. It's not my choice. But Chad might want to... how can we get that? Send me a DM on LinkedIn, perhaps? I can look. I'm not big on knowledge management, but I can certainly look. Otherwise, you should be able to call customer support and they can follow up if you got a reference number. Okay, I think we're going to have to put this one on hold until I figure out how I can get that record working. Let's go back and do option 2. One was event. The other was... Hang on, let me look at my to-do list. I had it. I captured it. Where was it? It was get property. That's an easy one. So using a property to drive your flow is going to be easy. Now, there's a couple of things that I do need to check in here, because when you do a gs.get property, all values are returned as strings. So let's go and create a new flow, and I would like it to be a little smarter than that so that you can take the answer. Well, the answer is going to be a specific type too, isn't it? Ooh, let's start simple and work out from there. See where we run into challenges. Okay, get a system property. That's our new action. Plan B. The input is, what is the property name? We obviously need to know the property name. Should we make a reference to sys properties? Yeah, I guess that's the only way we're going to be able to do it. I don't want to make somebody have to type in the property name. So let's do name is going to be a reference. Oh, you know what? I don't think properties are in here. Oh, it is. Okay. There's one place in the system, well, probably more than one place, where sys underscore tables are not listed. And I can't remember where it is, if it's business rules or somewhere else that you can't do that. Now, let's make that mandatory, because if you want to get a property, you better specify the name. We could also have an optional default value if it's not found. And that could be a string, should be a string. Don't need to make that mandatory because, I don't know, I just don't feel like it today. I don't see a logic in there. I will save that. So I've got my inputs defined. And now we can add a script step that's going to also have some inputs. One is name, which I will get from here. And the if I just drag name, I have a problem. That's a reference field. It's going to give me a sys ID. I need the property name, name. So that's going to look a little funny. Actually, name. But I have to dot walk to the name field of the property. I could also get the default value. These are my... the reason I'm doing these is underscore. These are programmatic variables. These are the ones I'm going to be using in my script. And they are going to get information, as I explained yesterday, information from the parent, the action input. So I'm passing this information in. I prompt the user for a name and a default value. Those are available to all steps, but all steps don't necessarily need to use them. If they want to use them, they have to define step inputs. So let's do this. This is going to be a one-step action. And it is going to do, at its heart, gs.getProperty, get property. Come on. If you do this in a business rule, it puts in the parentheses. If you do it in Flow Designer, it doesn't. So we have a little consistency issue there. And I'm going to use inputs dot name because that is the name of my property. What I like to do is find out if inputs.default value actually has something. Let's do a little error checking because I don't want to just put it in there if it's empty. Or could you? No, that will return an empty value if it's not found. Man, that might work. Let's do some testing first. Let's do inputs.default value. That might work. And then outputs dot value equals, we kind of need to capture that, don't we? That's the whole point of this. Look at this. I just reduced it down to one line. So the output value, and I just made this name up, which means I have to pass it out here. Value is going to be a string because GS property always returns strings. Save that. And now my script step, my output, gets its value from the script step value. Okay, does that make sense? Let me go through that again, just for, if nobody else's benefit, mine. I pass in two parameters. I prompt the user when they drag this action out onto the canvas. I ask for a property name, which is going to reference the system properties table. I'm going to get an optional default value, and then go in and say the script step is going to use a name and the default value based on the two things that were passed in by the user or the builder of the flow, and then say get the property by name. If it doesn't have a default value, I will use, if it's not defined in here, it will use the default value. Pass that back to outputs via the value variable. That's going to be exposed to the other script steps in the data pill picker, and the output will use that to pass it back to the user. So think of it almost as a nested function call. Okay, here's my test script. Let's cancel editing that. Let's not update the record. We're just going to log stuff for now. And I have a property. So this is saved. I'm going to save it one more time. I'm not going to publish it because I don't want it public yet. And in order to use it unpublished, I go to the kebab menu that I learned this week and make sure that I can show draft actions. Otherwise, it would not show up when I go to pick this action, global, get a system property, and here it is, prompting for my property name, which is going to be instance name, and my default value will be foo. Okay, now I should not see foo. Once I've got that, let's do a log, action log, and output instance name equals the value from step 3, which is the output of my property. So big benefit here is that, of course, by using system properties, you can change the behavior of the flow based on changing system properties. So use them as you see fit. I save that. Let's test it. Any record will do because I'm not using any record information really. Well, I guess I am. I'm using the floating point value in the other step, but it doesn't impact my test. Here I've got my system property. Now, I went through that a little quickly. Let me do that again. So on the test flow, I click the test button, picked a record, click run test. If you haven't seen this before, Flow Designer allows you to test before you release to production, before you publish this, before you activate it, and it ran the test. This link gives me the output of that test, so I can see an operational view of what happened. All three are completed. They're nice and green. That looks great. I can click on any of these and expand it to say, all right, here's my instance name. I passed in a default value of foo, and it went and got this, and underneath the steps, I can see what actually happened. So I can drill into the script step and what it did. Did it return the instance name? Where's my output value? I don't see an output value. Something happened. That's not good. That's not good. So my log is going to be empty or undefined. Oh, it did. Well, that's weird. I wonder why it didn't show the output variable here on runtime value. Who knows? Don't know. But it did return instance name equals dev20465, which is my developer instance name. So I now have a way to get properties. Let's do a little more testing to make sure that the default value part works. Cancel that. Let's change the way this is behaving. Give it a, I can't give it a bogus name because it only picks reference fields. So default value really doesn't have any, really no point to that, is there? If I had given it a random string and somebody typed it wrong, that might work. What do you think? Should we stick with only predefined? I think we should stick with predefined and get rid of default value. Just from the standpoint of Flow Designer's purpose for non-coding types. If there isn't a property defined, you shouldn't be using it. That's my stance. The developers at this level aren't going to be making up property names willy-nilly and could potentially type in the wrong property name and always be using their default value. And then when they, so I'm going to get rid of this input, delete the default value. That makes this even easier because my script step will have no default value. It will return just nothing, which I could either do by just leaving off the second argument or making it explicitly blank. I think I will go with blank rather than null or undefined or whatever it's going to do. This gives me peace of mind that says I am in charge of what the default value is. I'm not going to rely on it. I don't even know what it would return. Let's go find out. What does getProperty return if you don't give it a proper property name and no default value? How's that for a statement? gs.info, gs.getProperty, foo, nothing. Null. Okay, I don't like null. I don't like returning null to somebody because they're not going to have a way to compare null in a Flow Designer, to the best of my knowledge. This one, on the other hand, returns that. So if I were to say var some property equals this, I will get a string, gs.info, type of P, not S, not SP, stands for Service Portal. We'll do more Service Portal stuff next week. Then I get a string, but if I leave this off, what type is null? Probably an object. That's interesting. Null is an object. Didn't know that. Why do I care? I care because this means I can return a string and I can use it in an if activity in the flow logic to compare it against nothing. If it's empty or if it has a specific value, if it was retrieved successfully. I've made this easier for the user to use because now they don't have to worry about a default value. So if I go back here and I think I have to reload this. I'm not sure if it just, let's delete that. I've constrained them to only use properties that are on the property list, so they can't make things up themselves. Get a system property is just a simple reference list. So if I wanted to get a property from X, say loaner default depot, I can do that. Done, save, test. Come on, test. It's running, it's running, it's running. It's not running till I press it. Please provide a value for the record. Fine, run. I don't really need that. So tomorrow's lesson is I still need to figure out how to reference a record in a script action. Well, tomorrow being Saturday, I probably will try and figure this out. Let's look at the log. I should have something like Chicago on here. System property, it didn't log anything. Is that variable have no default value? Might have to look. I passed it X loaner default depot. And, all right, let's go check. Runtime value is, it should say London. Why did I not get a London back? Oh. I'm thinking because I have to solve this. I have to solve this because it's no longer step 3. I removed the step and then I put it back in, but I never put in the value. So if you delete steps, you may have to fix where they're referencing. Let's test this one more time. I don't want to end on a failure. Test, pick a record. I don't care. Run. And thanks for your help with the script. Include initialize, confirming what I thought I knew. You're welcome. Again, if you found something useful in this video, helpful, informative, be sure to click the like button. And here's my log value. Instance name equals London, which makes absolutely no sense. It's not an instance name. It's a location. It's a string from another application, from another property, but I didn't change my debug statement. That takes care of it for today. Hope you found this informative. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. And I look forward to seeing you. Will I be here Monday? I will probably not be here Monday. I've got to fly to Santa Clara, and I will not be here Tuesday. So the next time I will likely see you is, I might be able to sneak one in on you on Monday. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. You'll get the alerts, like I'm getting all kinds of alerts right now. You can probably hear those in the background. Maybe Monday, definitely Wednesday. I will see you again there. Take care. Have a good weekend. And I'll talk to you later.